All right, now we are going to do U8-L9, how to write an essay part 2. All right, so today we are going to talk about the body paragraphs and the conclusion as well, but let's just focus on the body paragraphs right now. So you will need 3 body paragraphs total, okay? Each paragraph focuses on an element about your topic. So I kind of did an example one. So if I was going to talk about prompt 1 with the Black Plague, so again, prompt 1 is what was the status of life in Europe in terms of faith, technology, and trade before the plague arrived? How did the arrival of the plague affect the way of life of Europeans? Okay, so if I took this prompt, I almost have to kind of dissect it and be like, okay, from this prompt, what are 3 major things I can talk about so I can get my 3 body paragraphs? So if I was you, these are the 3 the 3 body paragraphs I would make out of this prompt. Okay, body paragraph number 1, I would talk about European life with faith, technology, and trade before the plague. Okay, do you see how I got that directly off of the prompt itself? Body paragraph number 2 is the arrival of the Black Plague and its immediate effects on society. Okay. So that's kind of like the beginning of how did the arrival of the plague. Okay. So, like when it first arrived. And then body paragraph number 3 is how the plague changed European life after it was gone. Okay. So that's kind of answering the second question, too, of how did the arrival of the plague affect the way of life of Europeans. I'm kind of hitting like the tail end of that, of like what were the long-term effects of this. Okay. If you end up doing prompt number 1, you certainly do not have to like lay this out like I just did. That's just kind of the one that I came up with. All right. So in the body paragraph, the first sentence of the body paragraph is the topic of the body paragraph, aka it is telling me what that paragraph is about. So my example would be, again, I know we're going to go back to Clara Barton, but it says Clara Barton's first importance of the American Civil War was her sense of care towards wounded soldiers. That sentence tells me exactly what the rest of this paragraph is going to be, which is her care towards wounded soldiers. Okay, you're going to do you're going to do the same thing, except for with the Black Plague. Then after that, you are going to write 2 to 4 more sentences explaining more details about that topic of the body paragraph. Okay, so after that first initial paragraph, you're going to write 2 to 4 more sentences. For this example, I only have 1 sentence because I made this for 7th graders, not 11th and 12th graders. But I wrote, like, caring for wounded soldiers was not easy due to long hours and little supplies. And then I would go on to talk about more about what her role was like in the American Civil War. So same thing with you, whatever you choose to be your topic. For the first body paragraph, write 2 to 4 more sentences, just getting me those like kind of nitty gritty details about whatever your topic is. And then for each of your body paragraphs, you need 1 quote per paragraph. Okay, you need that. Warning though, some students really think they're funny and they like to put their whole paragraph as a quote. Please don't do that because I will mark you down some serious points. Okay, when I mean a quote, I'm looking for a sentence, maybe 2 sentences. I'm not looking for a gigantic quote. Okay, so I would say 2 sentences max. So here, I'll go on to the next one. So a quote is a sentence from an article that you could not say better than the author already did. Okay, so saying a quote like "the grass is green," that's a stupid quote. Don't use that. Okay, it has to be something significant. Okay, usually a quote has some special meaning or message important to it. Can you just slap a quote into your paper? No. So you have to insert a quote. You have something to lead up to that quote. For example, if you're going to quote something from the plague, which like 99% of you probably are, is according to the plague, and then you do the quotation mark, blah, 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 whatever your quote is, quotation mark, parenthesis, the plague, make sure it's italicized, parenthesis, period goes outside that parenthesis mark, okay? Okay. If you have an article but do not have an author, Okay, so if the article is in the article, The Black Plague for Dummies, okay, then you're going to do quote, blah, 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 whatever your quote is, parentheses, or not parentheses, quote. And then you're going to do parenthesis, The Black Plague for Dummies, parenthesis, oop, and a period. There we go. If you do have an article with an author, you're going to do, according to Tom Smith, quote, blah, blah, quote, parenthesis, Smith, the last name, parenthesis, period. Okay, period goes outside of the parentheses. So just as a note, there's lots of ways to segue into a quote. I'm sure you learned a lot in English classes. Use whatever your English teachers have taught you. That's totally fine with me. But just make sure that you have those quotation marks and you have the parentheses with whatever source you have, and the period goes at the end. There you go. Yeah. There's another reminder. Make sure that period goes at the end. That's probably like the thing I mark most people down on. I know I'm picky when it comes to that kind of stuff. So if you do not have an author, which most of you are not going to have an author for your quotes, because your quotes are from the Plague movie, put the title of the article, or in our case, the movie, in parentheses. Like an example would be quote, I'm the king of the world, quote, parenthesis, Titanic, italicize it, parenthesis, period. All right, so the next sentence after the quote, you need to explain why that quote is important, okay? You can use one or more sentences for that. So for example, my quote was, according to Lecha, caring for soldiers included, quote, make bandages out of corn husks. She worked long into the night, assisting the surgeons, cooking food for the soldiers, and tending the wounded despite nearby cannon fire and bullets flying overhead. Then I'm going to explain why this quote is important. So I literally say this quote is important because it shows that she did every task for all the wounded soldiers, such as cooking, helping in surgery, and making bandages. Okay. Lastly, you're going to need an outro sentence for your paragraph. An outro sentence just kind of sums up what you said in the paragraph and pretty much moves on. Okay. You can link the topic of the paragraph to the next upcoming paragraph if you like. So if you have some sort of connection. So yeah, I'm trying to think of an example off my head. Yeah, I don't think I can. Okay. But you guys are creative. I'm sure you can. So for example, my outro paragraph for this was, Barton was so brave that she did all of this while battles were going on and she could have easily been hit with a bullet. Okay, so now you're going to repeat the slides from the beginning of U8-L9's video until now in order to do body paragraphs 2 and 3. So just repeat what I just told you for body paragraphs 2 and 3. All right, so next we're going to do the conclusion paragraph. So what a conclusion paragraph is a summary or a wrap-up of what you talked about in your paper. So the first thing you need to do is you need to restate your thesis. And to do that, so remember this little mathematical formula? Yeah, so whatever your thesis was, take the parts of it and just kind of like reword it, reorganize it. So it's a different sentence, but it's telling me the same thing. Okay. You can't rewrite the thesis. You have to reword, or you can't rewrite the same thing. You must reword it. And another thing too, I have a really hard time with conclusion paragraphs. I always have. If you don't know how to start a conclusion paragraph, you can start it in conclusion. I know that some teachers are really picky about that. They're like, don't start it in conclusion. That's too obvious. For me, I don't care. You can start it with in conclusion. All right. So kind of an example of restating the thesis. So here's my thesis that I had. From the intro paragraph, I said, according to Monica Leche and Clara Barton's Missing Soldiers Office, Clara Barton is important to the American Civil War because she cared for wounded soldiers and found out information about what happened to missing soldiers. And then I restated down here, in conclusion, Clara Barton was one of the most important people in the Civil War due to her jobs of taking care of the wounded soldiers and finding out the fate of soldiers. Okay, literally like the same information, just rewording it and putting it in my conclusion. Also, you got to make sure that you restate why the topic of your paper is important. Okay. So in the intro paragraph, I said, "This is important because she saved countless Union soldiers' lives so they could win the war and help families get answer of what happened to their loved ones." Okay, so I just take that sentence, I jumble it around, I reword it, I say, in the conclusion paragraph, "Without Barton, countless Union soldiers would have died because of the lack of medical care. Countless families would also be forever wondering what happened to their missing family member if it wasn't for Barton." Okay? That is how you make a conclusion paragraph. Now, for the works cited, most of you are just going to have that one source to cite, which is the plague. Um, but I still want you to create an MLA citation for it. If you do use one or more of the additional resources, you have to cite them too. So do an MLA citation. I'm sure you've done it quite a few times by now, but just insert a page break from the rest of your paper so you just kind of have like a fresh start to your paper. And at the top of your new page, you're going to type works cited in the middle top of the page. I'll show you an example in just a second. And then go to the EasyBib or any other place that you know of that does automatic like citations. I know EasyBib is so silly with their ads. Really bugs me. I get it. I don't know any other good websites. Fill in the information for the movie The Plague. I might give you a little bit information about it just because it is kind of hard to find info about the History Channel stuff. And the other articles that you use, if you use them, and then copy and paste your citation to your citation page. Let's see here. So this is what it's going to look like. Okay, you're going to have works cited up on the top of the page. Make sure it's a fresh page. So you can see here that I went to insert and I went with break, page break. That's how I got this nice fresh page down here. And then I put in my MLA citation. All right, let's go back to that slideshow. All right, so when you're finishing up your essay, have a friend, have a parent or guardian, a trusted adult, older sibling, whatever, proofread your paper, okay? Just have another set of eyes on it. Trust me, it really helps. Make sure you upload the paper to turn it in on our Schoology page under Unit 8, Week 3 folder. Any plagiarism or AI work will result in an immediate deduction of points, if not a 0. Yeah, zeros are things I give. So usually in school, you have a peer review workday. I don't know exactly how to do that on online school, but you will have a chance to redeem or fix mistakes that you did make. I will correct them. And then the first week of Unit 9 at some point of time, I haven't quite decided yet. I will have like a Black Plague essay correction or something on like something on that line, like day blocked off for you to look over my correction notes and for you to do any corrections on your essay. So here's just kind of the basics of the essay. It is due February 19th at midnight. It is a 700 word minimum. Yeah, 700 words. It is supposed to be double spaced, Times New Roman, font size 12, pretty standard. All information from the essay will come from U8, L6, or L7 documentary. Optional, again, you can use the other 30 minutes that I will post of the Plague movie and any other articles that I post as well. If you find another source, email me so I can take a look at it before you like are hard set on using it. There will be 5 paragraphs total, like we just went through with the intro, 3 bodies, and then the conclusion. Just remember that each of those body paragraphs need to have a quote. Optional, I will also be posting additional articles in the last 30 minutes of The Plague to Unit 8, Week 2 folder, in optional additional resources for essay folder. I will also publish the rubric in the Unit 8, Week 2 folder. So next up, you are going to do U8-L9, which is literally just writing your essay. Just write your essay. I have February 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th all dedicated to you to write your essay. Super cool. Essays are due Sunday, February 19th at midnight. If you need an extension at all, please email me to ask. Don't just assume I'm going to give you one. Just email me. It's okay. I promise. I'm crazy, but I'm not mean. Maybe I am. Oh, I don't know. That's a good question, huh? All right, so what questions do you have about writing this essay? And if none, type none. All right, get going on writing those essays. Email me or come to office hours Thursday and Friday, 12 to 1, if you have any questions at all. All right, see ya.